Now, there's a fact about the potter and the clay that we sometimes overlook. The illustration is always only used of God's molding and shaping nations. It is never used of his molding and shaping you and I as individuals. Now, I'm not saying it's wrong or sinful to say, hey, we're like clay on the wheel and, God is molding us, sometimes more pressure, sometimes, there's some great things, to glean from that. But the actual biblical illustration is about God working with nations. Go in your concordance, search for potter and clay, or however you want to do that, and you'll find that when it's not just talking about pottery or in general, when it's using it as an illustration, it's always nations. Why is this significant? Certain aggressive but disturbing theologies teach that the master potter makes some people pottery that will definitely be saved. And so he's working on the wheel and he goes, Gene Pensiero, saved. He puts me over here. And then he makes some people pottery that cannot be saved. Sorry. And by the end of the thing, you've got some people who were saved because he saved them, and then you've got some people who were lost because they couldn't be saved. If you object to that awful depiction of God, they look at you with their cold, steely academic eyes and say 3 words that they believe will render you subdued and compliant. God is sovereign. I didn't realize that. God's sovereignty becomes like nuclear fire in a game of rock, scissors, paper. That's what they're trying to say. They'll say, so God is sovereign. Okay, well, I can't say God isn't sovereign, so I'm stuck. What I want to say is, of course God is sovereign. His sovereignty doesn't mean God can behave in ways that are contrary to his nature. If something would be immoral for me to do, how much more so if God did it? That approach to sovereignty reminds me of the famous Richard Nixon quote. Nixon said, when the president does it, that means it is not illegal. Supreme Court's going to rule on that pretty soon, right? Isn't that exactly what they're going to talk about, sort of? If the president does it, was it illegal? But you and I, for now, we're looking at that and say, well, that Nixon, wow, that guy was crazy. But essentially, this theology I'm talking about, they're saying if God does it, it's sovereign and glorious. Okay. So if I ran into a burning building, and I could scoop up 2 children and save them, but I just went kind of eeny, meeny, miny, mo, and I grabbed one by the toe and took him out and said, hey, news conference over here, here's Toey, and saved him. What about little, eeny, meeny over here? Could have saved him, but I decided, but see, now he's dead, he's alive. Glorious, right? I don't think so. Either his parents are going to beat you to death or you're going to go to jail. People say, that's a crude illustration. Yeah, because it's crude to say that God chose to send people to hell because he didn't. Now, can I explain everything about sovereignty and free will? No one can. But I want to err on the side of grace, right? Not on the other side. Potter and the clay is a big illustration for them, especially in Romans chapter 9, where it talks about the potter working with the clay and he can do whatever he wants to bring him glory. It's talking about nations. Edom, Israel, nations, not individuals. God can't do whatever he wants with individuals in that sense. And so he is so sovereign that he can and does allow for my free will.